Hi, Dr. Reagan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
It's not all a straight line to success type of relationship. There are going to be challenges with an associate, but I think at the end of the day, it's so worth it because you get to see that young doc grow in their confidence level and how they're taking ownership of their treatment plans and they're caring for your patients, So I think you just have to realize that with any good thing in life, there comes sacrifices, but in the end, it's worth it, and you're going to be blessed beyond measure by just making that jump.
Welcome to Investment Grade Practices Podcast, where we believe private practice dentists deserve to get the lifestyle today while building an asset for tomorrow. Join your host, Victoria Peterson, to design the practice of your dreams and secure your financial independence. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Investment Grade Practices. Today, I am here with the not yet, but soon to be famous, Dr. Jonathan Ehlers. John, welcome to Investment Grade Practice Podcast.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
We have been working together for a year or so with our team. You have Tiger Family Dental in Sedalia, Missouri. What is Sedalia like? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Sedalia. Yeah, it's a metropolis of 25,000 people. So our call to fame is the Missouri State Fair is in our town. It's a very blue collar community. Like I said, about 25,000 people, made up of a lot of farming folks and some industry, but really just, salt of the earth people. I grew up about 20 minutes south of Sedalia, so I've always called Sedalia home as well. And we're about an hour and a half east of Kansas City, so not too far from a metro area, but again, a pretty rural area.
I love it. And you're part of our investment grade practice coaching program. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had you on our panel for the IGP Summit. And the topic was all around associates, like how to build $1 million associate. And you were a panel of 3 to 5 doctors there. And I loved your topic so much that I had to have you on the podcast. So let's dive into that. If you are thinking of hiring an associate, if you have an associate now and it's not working out so great, if you want to improve your relationship with a podcast, get on the edge of your seat, turn up the volume on your treadmill, because John's going to throw down some nuggets of knowledge here. So first of all, tell us a little bit about the landscape of your practice. Like, what is your service mix? Who do you serve? Why did you bring on an associate? Those sort of things.
Yeah, so I think going back a little bit, so I started the practice in 2016, straight startup, and with a strong marketing budget from the get-go, we've been able to grow the practice from back then about 1,300 square foot practice with 3 operatories to now we're a 4,000 square foot office with 10 operatories, and then next year we're planning to add another 4 operatories and a dedicated surgical suite. So the trajectory of the practice has been quite steep. And pretty quickly in the process, I realized that I couldn't manage that many patients. We've been averaging about 100 to 150 new patients per month since the start of our practice. And so I realized pretty quickly, again, let's find someone that can help. When everyone has a slightly different philosophy when we're talking about adding an associate, the way that I approached it was, okay, this is the service mix that I want to provide. How can I add someone to basically work synergistically? Kind of take some of areas of the practice that maybe I didn't want to take care of, and we can coalesce together and even grow our service mix. And so, my practice is, the way I practice is pretty surgically focused. I do a lot of all on X, a lot of implants and different things like that. And so when I found Dr. Erin, she didn't like a lot of that, and she wanted to focus on cosmetics and family dentistry. And so she was the perfect addition to my practice where we can still serve that area because it is a big need in our area still. But then I can still focus on the type of dentistry that I want to provide.
Okay, you said a lot right there. We had a strong marketing budget from the get-go. I was scratch start. We grew 100 patients per month. If you've been following investment grade practices, you know that what you just described on was the viability stage, right? And it sounds like you skyrocketed through that pretty quickly, and bringing on the associate helped you not only meet the demand, but open up a whole new market.
Absolutely. And I think, the one thing that I would urge, newer dentists that are kind of on this path to take a step back and, as my practice was growing, I didn't really adopt coaching early on. And I was so focused on, we got all these patients coming in, we're producing all this dentistry, everybody's happy. And then you add four new team members with different personalities. And all of a sudden you're like, we don't have systems in place. And so for us, it was like, we had to go through some bumpy roads. And so I would tell, get the coaching on board early, and honestly get some guidance with your marketing. Because again, you could spend, a healthy 8% of your collections on marketing and do pretty well. But if you're not focusing that marketing on the type of dentistry you want, you could be leaving some money on the table.
Love it. Just for a little bit more background and color, what the quality of revenues in your practice? Are you on PPOs, out of network, in network? How does that work?
So we have a direct contract with Delta, and then we contract with kind of some third party groups that will kind of get us into some networks, but we don't do a lot of direct. We don't have direct contracts with insurances. We use Carrington, and so that gets us into the majority of insurance groups in our area. And so, we are a PPO office. I mean, we see a lot. I'd say we're probably 75% PPO. But again, I think adding the full arch niche into the practice, that's kind of grown our outside of the PPO environment. Because again, it's just when you're talking treatment plans of those dollars and cents, insurance becomes kind of obsolete in that discussion. You're selling dentistry, not necessarily an insurance plan. And again, my goal is to slowly get ourselves out of that PPO environment. And again, that is a fine line you got to walk, to make that transition.
Well, yeah, especially, all the teachers union and everybody, your mother's going to get mad at you in a small town if you don't take care of her friends.
That's tough. That is a real issue in my area. They're going to call me on my cell phone. Like, why don't you take my insurance?
Right. Right. Like, oh my goodness. So, I mean, again, you are, not to throw out a lot of numbers and things like that, but if, we just do some rough math of 10 operatories, probably 40,000 per operatory, you can get a sense of the size of your practice, and very profitable. Your EBITDA is well north of 15%. So, a lot of times there is a lot of talk of get off the PPOs, but I would say that probably 80% of the doctors we work with still have some type of insurance reimbursement, but it sounds like you are modeling the philosophy of insurance is a form of payment. It's not a form of treatment planning.
Exactly right. And I think that's the point that you have to make. It's, at your initial consultation, comprehensive exam, you set the stage right there. Insurance is a way that you're going to get some payment there, but that's not how we're going to operate your treatment plan. You're coming to Tiger Family Dental because we're going to treat you comprehensively. We're going to diagnose you, and we're going to recommend treatment that you need, not necessarily what insurance is going to pay. And so that right there allows the patient to have some insurance benefits. But we've already had the conversation, and we see it all the time. so and so, do you need a pre-authorization for this crown? They're going to say, oh, well, I'll just sign the pre-auth refusal, because you told me I need a crown. We have that relationship. Let's do the crown. So insurance can be in addition to the service you can provide, but let's not let it dictate how we practice.
Yeah. I think that's the number one conversations. If doctors can get comfortable having that conversation, it overcomes so many barriers for the team.
That's right.
So let's talk about your associate, because one of the things you really put a fine point on at the conference was empowering your associate, supporting, giving resources to, marketing for. I'll have to say, I know it seems very common sense to you, but I see it as very rare, particularly in a PPO office. Like the primary doctor wants to do all the great cases, and I'm going to give all the composites and the kids to the associate. You didn't take that approach.
No, I will say too, in my area, to attract an associate period is a challenge. And so I approached it from a standpoint is, if I've found the right person, I'm going to do everything I can to keep them in my practice and keep them happy. And so Dr. Erin, and she's slightly a unicorn, I have to say it. She owned a practice in Indiana for 4 or 5 years, relocated because her husband moved down here, didn't want to own a practice, and so she came to the area. It was a perfect fit. She had that production history already. And so, whenever we were talking and she's like, this is the type of dentistry I want to produce, in media, I'm like, okay, let's find the things that are going to make you successful. Because at the end of the day, when your associate is successful, your practice is successful. And that comes back to you. And that also goes back to our marketing discussion. It's like, if you don't have the patient mix that's going to provide quality production capability for your associate, then you need to do something else. You need to figure out how are we going to get those patients in here. And that's where marketing also comes in. It's not just hire the associate and let's just sit down and hope that we can fill their schedule. No, it doesn't just happen. You have to have a strategy to attack that and make it happen. And marketing is a big piece there.
I love that. Tony Robbins often says that hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So how did you market for her?
I think it starts with well before they even step foot in your practice on day one of seeing patients. You need to have a strategy that goes back months. I think we marketed Erin for 2 months before she even came in. We put flyers out in our local community. We talked to the chamber. We actually had her do a radio interview. To get on the radio and say, hey, this is who I am. She didn't even really talk about dentistry. She's like, these are my kids. These are my interests. This is why we're coming here to Sedalia. And I think giving a well-rounded description of who this person is, and I'm sure it's this way everywhere, but in particular small towns, they want to know who you are. People care about relationships. They want to know who your husband is, who your wife is, who your kids are. Where do you go to church? If you don't go to church, what are your interests? And so that's how I approached it. I wanted my community to know this is the person that I'm trusting their dental care with, and that was day one. That was the first step for us. And then I asked, let's see some of your work. Do you have some work in your previous practice, or what are your interests? And then we specifically marketed those skills for her. And so, by the time Erin started seeing patients, patients were already asking her questions about, hey, I heard about this. Can you talk about that? So just really organic conversation starters. That's, I think that's a great way to start the growth of your associate.
Amazing. I hope you're all picking up these nuggets that he's putting down, because, market before they come on, get to know them as a person, let the community get to know them as a person. Amazing stuff. How did you help the team get ready for an associate? That's not always, you talk about it, a little bumpy.
Yeah. It's just a rule of thumb in our office. The new person, any person that comes in our practice, it's like they have to go through the gauntlet of questions and, oh, I don't know if we like her, or, they do it differently, So we kind of set up meetings where she would come into our team meetings again, because she was already in the area before she started seeing patients. And we just had them, we did some lunches. We just introduced, again, to meet who she was, not necessarily as the dentist in the practice, but just as Erin, and so I think that's important. Getting your staff to realize that, okay, this is not a person that's coming to challenge who we are as a practice. We're bringing them in to be an asset, in addition to our practice. So I think it's just, again, it's the conversations you have to have. And when I talk about empowerment, right off the bat, I told my staff, she is an extension of me. On the door, it's not just my name now; it's her name. And she may be an associate, she may not have equity in the practice, but let's be real. She is a authority figure in the practice. She has ownership in the practice. She's caring for our patients just like we are. And if you set that standard from day one, I think your staff will choose to fall in line with that ideology, or they might just go somewhere else. And if they're not willing to support you in that decision, they're probably not the right fit anyway.
You have, I don't know if you've even recognized this as a pattern, but you said set the standard from day one about 3 times. Set the standard with your patient, set the standard with your team, set the standard with the associate. How did you discover what your standards were?
Well, I think it takes some failure along the way. It's patient comes in, they're pushing to do a less than quality restoration because they don't want to pay for it because their insurance is paying so-and-so. And early in your career, you say, okay, I'll do it. And then you pay for it every year down the road from that. Or you have, you bring in a team member that has all these demands that doesn't really fit, the philosophy of your practice. You're like, oh, I really need an assistant right now. So, okay, we'll hire her. And it's just a headache from the get-go, or it's just like all those things. What I found in my experience is they were failures because I didn't realize that I did have a standard. I didn't realize that I did have a practice philosophy and how we're going to treat our patients and how we're going to treat our staff and our associates. And so what I found is just you have to be honest with yourself, establish those things early, and don't go, don't cross them. You just gotta, have the hard conversations, because at the end of the day, it's going to make your life better in the end.
I love it. Yeah, Bruce often says, with integrity, nothing else matters. Without integrity, nothing else matters. And sometimes we think about that as being, on the side of honesty and truthfulness and things like that. But integrity really is, does this coffee cup have integrity?
Yeah.
I literally was drinking coffee the other day a friend gave me a coffee mug. Love this coffee mug. But the handle broke off. It just came off immediately. So I had my husband, who's a contractor. He's got all the heavy duty glues and stuff. So he glued this back, and it worked for a year. And I'm literally on a call, and my coffee cup starts falling this way and it's spilling over me because that handle lost its integrity and the glue stopped working. So this glue of what you said was so powerful. Set the standard and then stick with it no matter what. The pain of a crucial conversation is going to be minimal compared to breaking your standards.
Absolutely. And it's hard. My personality, I think that, when you do introspection as a practice owner, you have to have those conversations with yourself. And I struggle with that. I think naturally I'm a people pleaser, and having those tough conversations on the front end is so difficult, but it's way more difficult dealing with the repercussions afterwards when you don't just set that standard from the get-go. So, I've learned the hard way. And so I'm trying to educate those to say, just have that conversation.
Practice with teddy bears in your living room first.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I ask a question at the summit. There's 3 phases of business development. There's the viability, which we talked about, the race to revenue. You described a great scenario there of having a healthy marketing budget. Then get your systems really predictable. It's a mess trying to expand if you're not predictable. And the durability question, do you remember that?
Yeah.
How long can you be away from your practice and not worry that it's falling apart in your absence? So,
Well,
answers.
I have a good example. We had twins about a year and a half ago, twin girls, and I told my wife, it's like I want to be there, because we had our son. He's almost 4. I think I took a week, maybe not even a week, and I was back at it. And I'm like, you know what? I think I took almost 4 weeks, so a little over 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
And Erin, in the team, they killed it. The office was humming. They would send me screenshots of their production, and like having some really awesome days, And so I was sitting at home taking care of my girls, and my practice was doing great. So when you say durability, like that was a light bulb for me. It's like, you know what, our practice is durable. We've built those systems. And it was a great feeling for me. So I think I can honestly say, about a month, 2 months, I could take off and our practice. I know our practice will be taken care of. And it's it feels amazing. It's the freedom that I think we all really want, because they always say, "Oh, be your own boss. It's great." But honestly, what happens is you quickly become a slave to your practice. And so that's part of that durability conversation. And it's part of, I think, why so many try to find this associate, because they're like, oh, well, finally I can just dump all this stress on them, and I can go to 2 days a week and do all these great procedures just for myself and let them kind of be the grunt of the practice. And that doesn't work. But if you treat your associate right, if you empower them, if you get them that ownership, then they'll gladly. Erin saw that as an opportunity to, number one, produce some really good dentistry, but also take that leadership role with our staff. When I came back, it was amazing how that mindset shifted with her and the staff. They respected her because she didn't just scramble and have that stress on her face. She's like, no, she stood up and said, we're gonna make this thing run just like John was here, and they did. So it was great.
I love it. Did you have to give up anything? Like, there's so many doctors. I just want to speak directly to the doctors who say, but I'm a curmudgeon. I can't work with anybody else. Partnerships don't work. Associateships don't work. My way or the highway. We're so autonomous sometimes in leadership. If you had to give some bit of encouragement to doctors who feel a little overwhelmed, like I'm chained to the practice and I can't leave, what would they have to change about themselves to let someone in to help them?
I think you do have to give up a little bit of that stranglehold in your practice. But if you do that, the stress level will, exponentially go down by just giving up that little bit of hold, So, I think I've always had the idea that I wanted to work and collaborate with someone else, whether it's Erin that's more of a peer or a young associate that we're getting ready to bring on a younger associate. So we might have to have this conversation in a year and see how that differs. But so I always had that mindset. But I guess if you're a doc that's been practicing for 30 years by yourself, and I think you just have to take it from it's like if you can give something to the world, it always gets repaid to you, tenfold. And I think you really have to approach that. It's not all a straight line to success type of relationship. There are going to be challenges with an associate, but I think at the end of the day, it's so worth it because you get to see that young doc grow in their confidence level and how they're taking ownership of their treatment plans and they're caring for your patients, So I think you just have to realize that with any good thing in life, there comes sacrifices, but in the end, it's worth it, and you're going to be blessed beyond measure by just making that jump.
John, it's been such a blessing being with you today. We're going to end here. Another great nugget you just gave us, though. I hope you heard it. You're like, well, I'll talk to you again in a year. We're about to bring on another associate. And that's another principle of growing investment grade practices, is that these stages are not linear. They're like, I go from viable to predictable, and it's always going to be predictable. And then it's durable, and it's always durable. You're in durable now, but you're bringing in an associate. So you go back to stage one. Is this viable, with this third element? And you've got it'll ripple through the whole practice, all the marketing and the team and the relationships and the contracts and all of that. So good for you. I will bring you back in a year, maybe sooner, to see how that's working.
Oh, great. No, I'll look forward to it.
All right. My last question for you. I should have asked you this a long time ago, but I'm really curious. Where did the name Tiger Family Dental come from?
So whenever I was thinking about creating this practice in our area, I wanted a practice that the whole community could, relate to. And so from elementary school to our high school, the mascot was the Tigers. And I'm also a diehard Mizzou Tiger fan. So that also is like, well, perfect. I can represent, my favorite college and then also my community. So that's how Tiger Family Dental was born, just with that mindset. Because I remember talking to a guy, and he's like, don't just say Jonathan Ehlers DDS as your office. Like, you have your practice name reflect the things that you care about, and that's really what it was. I'm a huge sports fan. I love my community. I mean, I go to work and I expand technology in my practice, expand our practice patient flow, because I want Sedalia to have the best dentistry possible. And so it was just natural for me to have a name like that rather than just a generic, my name. So, and this also can live on well beyond me. Tiger Family Dental can be a staple in Sedalia even many years after I'm retired.
I love it. Well, that gives me another reason to bring you back for a podcast on authentic marketing. You are just one of my favorite people in this industry. You're comprehensive, you're compassionate, you're empathetic to the needs of your team and your community, so authentic and genuine, from the name of your practice to everything that you do, and high tech. You're the first person I know who has a robot in their office. So go Yomi.
Absolutely.
So would you come back and visit with us again, and let's dive deeper into authentic marketing?
I would love to. Anything that I can do for PDA and IGP, it's you guys have changed the trajectory of my practice and our ability to help patients. So anything I can do to help and spread the news, I'm here for it.
I love it. If docs want to reach out and bend your ear, is there a way that they can do that?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can reach out to me. My email is JREOMS2012@gmail.com. And you can and you can reach out to the office too. Our office phone number is 660-827-2405, and we can chat. Any questions you have, I'll be more than happy to help.
All right. As I said before, the not yet famous but soon to be Dr. Jonathan Ehlers. Ehlers or Ehlers?
It's Ehlers.
Ehlers.
Yeah, German. So it's tough. I don't even fight it anymore. Anything you want to call me that's not profane, I'm fine. I'm fine.
I'm just so happy that this is your very first podcast, because you're about to turn the industry upside down. You're an influencer in the making. And if you do get a chance to spend some time with Jonathan, what a great guy. So thank you for all you do for your community. Thank you for what you're doing for dentistry. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. You have a great weekend. It was great talking with you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Investment Grade Practices Podcast. If you find value in this episode, help us spread the word by passing it along to a dental friend, subscribe, and give us a like on iTunes or Spotify. Learn more about building your investment grade practice at productivedentist.com today.